Hey everyone, this is a bonus portion from episode 4. Kind of like how back in the 80s and 90s when cartoons or anime would have that recap episode that you kind of just skipped over. Yeah, that's kind of what this is. We go over bits and pieces of things that already happened over the past 3 episodes. There's an actual plot reason for it. There's actual characters introduced in this segment, but I felt this could have been better removed from this episode entirely just in case anyone wanted to skip it. And that's really all I had to say. See ya.
After relaying the news to museum curator Lucius Mayweather, the three investigators returned to their homes for a fair bit of rest and relaxation. That is until trouble came knocking on their doors. So, starting with the person who actually is residing within Arkham proper. I mean, technically that's also Walter and Gregory, but we're starting with Walter since I said his name first on the list. So, Walter, you're still staying at that little hotel of yours, correct?
Yep. I am staying in, we just called, was it just called, I think it was just called the Riverside Hotel or something like
It's
that.
probably been 2 days since the events in Independence Square, when whether you're relaxing, doing whatever, you're getting ready for your morning, really, probably have something to do out there.
Just grooming my hair.
You hear a knock on your hotel door.
Just give me a second, I'll be right there. And, Walter will put down his comb, give his, cheeks a little, slap. Alright, time to, get started. And he goes over to the door, opens the door with a polite smile, and, just, hopes to God this isn't the police.
Well, standing outside the door is a man with a cane and a trench coat wearing one of those trilby hats you know of.
Ah, yes.
And he instantly looks you over and goes, "You would be Walter King, correct?"
Yes, that is my name. Yes, Walter King at your service. Who do I have the pleasure of speaking to, may I ask?
He will hold out a hand. "I am Leland Dune. I work for the government. I have a few questions for you pertaining to the events 2 nights ago."
Ah, I see, I see. Uh, well then, would you like to come inside, or
"Yes, please, if that is an option."
I'll open the door for him and let him inside.
All right. He's gonna walk on and he'll pull out a small notepad and a little pencil, and he's gonna look at you and just sit down on the edge of one of the beds or something, and he'll just start up. "So, in your own words, with as many details as possible, what happened that night in Independence Square?"
Well, as you probably may know, me and a couple of fellows were on something of an investigation for the Mr. Mayweather, the museum curator.
Okay.
We were kind of following a few leads, and eventually those leads led us to the mortician. Sorry, no word escaped me for a moment. I apologize. But yes, we talked to the mortician Larry. After speaking to the man, we decided that something wasn't quite on the up and up when I don't know, he told us about the body that we were asking about, the one of the men that attacked the museum not a few nights ago. And well, we decided to just shadow the man, follow him, see what he was up to so late at night, and we kind of, I guess, walked in on his meeting with this other man, the one with the dogs and the very bad gun. I don't know. There was an argument of some sort, and then they kind of just shot each other.
And what about the dogs?
The dogs were let off to attack Mr. Larry, and after those two kind of dealt with each other, the dogs then came after us, and we kind of had to subdue them. I think a few of them got away in the scuffle.
Alrighty then. And you mentioned you were working with the museum. You were looking for their artifacts or something like that, correct?
Yes, there was a small reward, so, being the man I am, I decided I would offer a helping hand, and, even if I could manage to track down their artifacts that were stolen, that would just be a little more money in my savings.
Alright, and how did that investigation end, might I ask?
Not well, honestly. We kind of followed a few leads. We talked, to the police, talked to the Larry the mortician, and then we eventually tried to see if we could talk to the Mr. Thomas Pitts, but when we went to go interview, try to see if we could have a chat with him, the police had, set up a crime scene, and we were only told secondhand that, yeah, it might have been him that had the artifacts. Something we had suspected earlier in the investigation, but never really had the evidence for.
And to your knowledge, what artifacts were stolen from the museum that night, and which ones were recovered to your knowledge?
If I were to go through, I remember there was the Mr. Cecil Clark's bust, some arrows/arrowheads. I'm not sure which of those they were. I believe that the sarcophagus was broken into and something was taken from there. And I think I am missing something, but that might have been it. I imagine that they've gotten. Oh, I think they also took some bones or something, but I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. This item from the sarcophagus, did they... And he chuckles a bit. Did they steal the mummy?
No, not the mummy itself. We had checked that with the under the supervision of the security guard, Mr. Dudley, and we confirmed that the mummy was not taken.
Okay. Alright, I just needed to do this for the sake of keeping up appearances, gotta get things written down. He's, closed up his little notepad. They were wondering about the events that happened that night, so just making sure that everything adds up, Also checking in on how that investigation went.
Yeah.
It's kind of a frustration when private investigators get involved and then things suddenly become less private,
Yeah, I understand that. Well, sometimes, things just go to shit, honestly.
Sometimes they do. Well, it's been a pleasure, Mr. King, but I have a few more stops I need to make today, and information to deliver. So, thank you for your time. I'll be getting out of your hair now. And he's gonna pick himself up, put his coat back on, and be out the door. For you, Gregory, I assume you're probably studying at Miskatonic, correct?
Yes, I am.
That's what you'd be doing on your usual days. This is probably sometime about 2 days later, after the incident at Independence Square.
Yeah, I've been trying to mentally distance myself as much as possible after having watched a person die, shot in the head.
It does things to you.
And then all the people that apparently died at Thomas's place. Yeah, things got a little bit too hot for me. I'm going to try to keep my nose down. I do not want to go to the big house.
While you're on campus that day, perhaps downtime between classes, probably just walking around the campus, a fellow wearing a trilby hat, a rather oversized coat, and carrying a walking cane walks up behind you and calls out, "Mr. Feldman! Mr. Feldman, is that you?"
Yes? Who are you? Are you in one of the classes?
No. Unfortunately not. Don't have much time for education these days, unfortunately. He's going to hold out a hand to shake your hand. I am a Mr. Leland Dune. I work for the government. I have a few questions pertaining to the incident that happened 2 nights ago.
Oh, yeah, sure. So, do you want to do that here? Or you got a place for that?
I don't exactly have a place, but I assume we could probably requisition an office somewhere in here.
Yeah, I suppose so. I'm sure we could go to the on-campus coffee place.
Fine by me. You lead the way. I'm quite unfamiliar with this place.
I'll take him to the slightly public coffee shop on campus of Miskatonic. I wonder what kind of lore there is about Miskatonic University. I doubt there actually is an actual coffee shop.
Nah, it's the modern twist because we're all modern here.
Yeah.
So, you go off, get some sort of coffee somewhere at a stand, and sit down at a table, and he takes off his hat and pulls out a little notepad from one of his pockets and a pencil. He's like, "Okay, so this should be pretty straightforward, unless there's, anything horribly wrong. So, just need to ask, straightforward, what happened that night, in detail, please?"
Well, how far back do you want me to go?
Well, I'm mostly concerned with the events of that night, though if you have any detail that leads up to that night, that would be useful.
Well, I mean, we were investigating on behalf of Mr. Mayweather for the museum. I'm sure you've heard.
Yes.
Basically, what is happening is a few hours prior to that, we were talking to a Mr. Larry DeCroix, the mortician of Arkham, I believe. We went down to there because the perpetrator that we were looking for had passed away in the cell at the Arkham Penitentiary, and we had to go down to there to sort of figure out what had happened and see what's up. We're talking to them, whatnot. 10 hours later, we were out and about trying to figure out where to go next to continue our investigation when we noticed Larry. We noticed him out in Independence Square, and we also noticed another individual with the three dogs.
All right.
Next thing we know, guns start going off.
So, you're telling me that you were moving about for your investigation when you noticed Larry in Independence Square at approximately, say, based off what we have on a timeline, about, you'd say 9:30, 10 o'clock-ish?
Yeah, I believe that's about time it went around. I didn't have my watch on me.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to keep a rough estimate when things get as messy as they did that night. All right, so that happened, and you say that there was gunfire. Who shot first?
I'm not too frankly sure.
Okay. And let's see. You know what? Follow-up question. Moving away from that night a little bit. You say you were investigating for the museum, correct?
Yeah. I was
How did
helping.
that go? How did that end?
Well, rather messily. We went to follow up on our lead, which was Thomas Pitts. The curator had given us his information to try to look into seeing if he had any information on what the tomes were that were taken from the sarcophagus at the museum. So after, we were caught up at that incident, I suppose we decided we'd try to follow up on that. And when we went to go check on Thomas Pitts, it was surrounded by local enforcement. Apparently, a whole bunch of people died inside Thomas Pitts' residence, and he was gone.
So, of the items that were stolen, did you see any of them recovered that day?
I think I saw the bust. I think some arrowheads and bones were brought back. Basically, as soon as we saw that, we didn't really want any more to do with the predicament that went on there, so we didn't want to interfere with authority.
Which is a fair thing.
So we just kind of went back to tell Mayweather what had happened. We didn't know if anything actually has been returned or not. They're probably sitting in evidence or something.
All right, and last question. You mentioned tomes, correct? In the initial report of the theft, there was no mention of tomes being stolen. What's that about?
Well, I'm pretty sure they wanted something out of the sarcophagus. At least that's what I remember.
All right, so you're telling me that they broke into the sarcophagus and stole some item of import alongside the various arrowheads as well as the bust of a Mr. Cecil Clark, correct?
Yeah.
All right, he continues writing down some notes in his little flip journal here. All right, think I've got enough from that. Unless there's anything else you'd like to, mention about the events of that night or the day of.
No, I don't think I have anything.
All right. Well, in that case, thank you for your time, Mr. Feldman. It has been a pleasure, and sorry for possibly slowing you down in your education here.
No, it's fine. I do well for myself.
All right. So he's gonna stand up, put his hat back on, put his coat on. Well, I think I've got one more stop I need to make, but think we're getting all the answers we need now. Thanks again, and hopefully we won't have to see each other again.
That's...
And he's going to start walking.
I don't like how he said that.
For you, since you probably returned to your home in Salem...
Yes?
You are currently sitting pretty, trying to keep yourself out of too much trouble. The bite wounds from the dogs, you make sure to keep them clean. They're not going to get infected or anything, but God, do they hurt. And probably 4 days after the events that happened at Independence Square, you have a knock at your door.
Who is it?
Mr. Leland Dune, federal agent. I have some questions for you.
Yes, hold on, let me just get to the door, and Yannik will take the moment to carefully unlatch whatever locks he has on the door to open it up, and when he opens the door, he'll do the wide arm gesture with a smile on his face. Would you like to have a seat to be comfortable?
That would be nice, yes.
In fact, I just got done making a bit of coffee for myself. Would you like some?
No thank you. I need both hands for what I'm doing, and sipping coffee might slow me down.
That is fair.
He's going to kind of walk in and kind of look around, so, which direction towards the sitting room?
Yannik will lead the way.
So, you lead him to wherever your furniture is, whether you're sitting in, like, the kitchen with the coffee, or you get yourselves comfortable around, like, a fireplace. I don't know how you live your life.
Around a fireplace.
And he comes in, and this guy is pretty powerfully built, probably mid to late 20s, you could assume. He's got on a rather large trench coat, and he's wearing one of those trilby hats.
A man of good taste.
Yes. Culture. So he comes in, and he takes his hat off, takes off his coat, and pulls out a small little notepad and a pencil of some sort, and sits down. He's like, alright, so just to make sure I've got the right residence and I haven't accidentally barged into the wrong home, you are Yannik Hammerstein, correct?
Oh yeah, that is correct.
Alright, didn't want to make any assumptions based off the accent, but, can't be too certain these days.
I cannot blame you. Again, what was your name?
I am Leland Dune, federal agent. I'm kind of in charge of the investigation to the events that happened at Independence Square the other night. And so he's sitting down, he's got his notepad out. Alright, so basically I just need you to give me your testimony, your report of the events that transpired that night when Billy Flowers and Mr. Delacroix were killed.
Oh, yes, that incident. His eyes kind of widen, but then go back just because of remembering. And he nods his head while he grabs his glass of coffee, and he takes a sip from it. So, where would you like me to start?
Well, as early as the yarn begins, I'd say.
Well, the earliest was when I was with my acquaintances of Walter King and one other compatriot of ours. We were at the Arkham Museum. I myself was curious about the robbery that occurred a few days prior, and I'm as curious as a kitten at times, so I more or less wanted to know what happened. I asked the curator there what happened, and essentially we went on a little bit of investigation, more or less, just to figure it out, but one thing led to another eventually, and, well, we had suspected that the mortician Larry Delacroix had something going on, along with a few others, and when we got to the square, it seemed like he had a encounter with Billy Flowers, who, I will be completely honest, I did not know he was a mob boss of the area, and apparently a shootout happened, and one thing led to another, and the dogs just kinda went loose and attacked me.
Alright, got a few questions pertaining to the incident. Who shot first?
Well, I think I know for the fact that it seemed Flowers was the one to shot first. He had a Thompson gun. I remember those a bit clearly. And Larry happened to pull out I think it was a small handgun, and before the dogs got him, it seemed like he managed to land a clean shot in into Billy's forehead, and then, well, the dogs got to him, and as he was running, and I tried to get the dogs off of him, but sadly they mauled him to death before I could do anything.
Alright, and Mr. Dune is writing all of this down as you're speaking. He's gonna look up from his notepad after he finishes up. So, follow-up question again. You mentioned that you were there that night. Why were you in Independence Square that night?
Well, I was following a hunch, more or less. I did take a cab only to travel around the area because it was at the dead of night. Anything could happen. Didn't want to get ambushed by anyone thinking they could assault a medical practitioner.
Is that something that happens to you often?
No, but, well, when you're from the fatherland, there's some people who don't take too kindly.
Aye, fair. Alright, so you say you were following a hunch, and what was this hunch? What kind of led you to this reasoning to be there?
A bit of it was just mild curiosity, as I said before, but
Curiosity about what, might I ask?
just more of how Mr. Delacroix was acting, 'cause he had a letter that came in when we went to visit him at one moment, and it seemed to have got his interest a little jumpy. That is why.
Alright, so did you read this letter? Did you view this letter?
I did not, but from the reaction he had while reading it was what tipped me off, and during the evening while I was going around the city more just in case if I had to make a travel for any reason, that way I knew the area well. Something told me to go have a follow-up with them, just to make sure.
Okay, so I'm going to want you to roll a fast talk because you definitely did look at that letter.
Oh yeah, I did.
Hey, it's pretty good. Look at that. So he continues writing his notes and he just kind of shakes his head. And so you followed him to his meeting at Independence Square, and that's where everything went down. Am I getting this timeline correct?
Yes, however, I did hear the gunshots first. That's when I stepped out of the cab, and I happened to see what transpired from the distance, and then by the time Billy was shot, and I did manage to get to him, sadly there was not much I could do other than get attacked by one of the dogs as I was attempting to save him.
Alright, and I think that just about covers everything I need to know about that night. Though out of idle curiosity of my own, must ask, you said you were doing an investigation for the museum, correct?
Yes, but it was more of a act of goodwill. I do not like to see some people in strife.
Alright, and so, more to the point on this, you assumedly gave, or at least found, that the objects were stolen by a Mr. Thomas Pitts, is that correct?
Yes.
Alright, and to your knowledge, what items were those? What was stolen from that museum?
Well, if I remember correctly, there was a few bones, a few arrowheads, and I feel like the bust of the curator before was taken. I remember that. And I believe one of my acquaintances happened to notice that the sarcophagus could have been tampered with.
Alright, and how was the sarcophagus tampered with?
From what I remember, it seemed as if it was pried open. I did notice, however, through one of the cases, there was a fingernail left behind.
Would that finger have belonged to an index finger, might I ask? Idle curiosity.
Yeah, it seemed the fingernail belonged to that.
Okay then, so sarcophagus tampered with, arrowheads missing, but yada yada. And you saw that those were returned, correct? Or at least they were found, so...
Yes.
He finishes writing a note. Alright, I think I've got everything here. Unless there's anything else you would like to add to the events that happened that day.
Yannik does not.
Alright, in that case, he will put his hat back on, grab his coat and his cane, and he'll just kind of nod his head at you. He's like, thank you for your cooperation. Hopefully, we'll have everything all sorted out, and we won't need to have any follow-ups about this. And if need be, I assume I can find you here?
Yes, you will.
Okay, then. Well, thanks for your time, Mr. Hammerstein. I will be heading out then. And he's gonna go out to your door, and just before he, lets himself out, he's gonna turn, he's gonna go, and just to make sure, nothing else you want to add?
Yannik will look off to the side, mostly in thought, to see if there is, and he would shake his head at the very end. No, I do not think there's anything else for me to add.
Okay, then. Well, then I'll be heading on out. Thanks again, and he'll be on his way.